Confusion breeds confusion. If I don't know who I am, how can I possibly tell someone else who they are or help them to find themselves? We must be walking in order to give birth to order. Barry, what do you think about that as an opening statement this morning?
Well, it kind of hits the nail on the head somewhat, Mike. Confusion rarely produces any desirable fruit. Chaos normally is that which is negative and destructive. It's rarely life-giving. Now, we can mix in the idea of desperation at times. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people get desperate enough that if hit a real rock bottom hard enough that they bounce and they become desperate and they realize, I don't want to be here. I may not know who I am, but I know I don't belong here and I don't want to be here. So they do what they have to do to get out of that. But in the mad scramble to get out of that ditch or out of that hole, we're only destined to repeat the process until we figure out how to live differently, aren't we?
Oh, now you've gone and opened up that non-kosher can of worms. That we're destined to repeat the process. Much is blamed on things that we want to take ourselves. People want to take themselves out of the picture of blame. So let's look at it from this aspect. We've gone through different things of pandemic, whatever you want to call it, health issues in people, and what is it blamed on? Many times it's genetics. So I can't do anything about this because it's genetics. Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to have to, because my parent was like this and their parent was like this, then I'm going to be like this, and it's just in my genes, and that's the way it's going to be. Possibly the reality is that, and let's just take it on a very basic level here, that if we understand it on this level, we can then take it to other levels. If your parents taught you that food comes through a window of your car and your parents were overweight, and the only thing that you do is all of your food comes through a window of a car and you're also overweight, that's not genes.
That's practice.
That's your own practice. And that practice is causing a generational, we could say it as a generational curse, moving from one generation to another. And somewhere along the way, you have to say, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for this. And I'm no longer going to teach another generation how to live like that. I'm going to take responsibility to break this here. See, confusion only turns to order when we take responsibility for the process. Enter in. Denomination today, we have over 43, last count I got a couple of years ago was 43,600 denominations. It's probably well over, 60,000 or something by now, who knows? How do you get that many? How do you open one book and get that many denominations? It's because of a lack of understanding who you are to begin with. It's about confusion. And confusion will breed confusion. So enter in this time that we have now of Hebrew roots, Messianic. And, when we say Hebrew roots, Messianic, I love what Bill Cloud said one time. He says he went through a whole liturgy of titles for people today. He says, or whatever you want to call us this week. Okay, if you don't know who you are this week, unless you make some changes, you won't know who you are next week. You'll just adopt another title. People are kind of like this. You ever gone to your pantry and there's a can and the label has fallen off and you don't know what's inside? That's kind of a picture of where many people are today in life. They've lost their label. They don't know who they are inside. And so anybody can come along with a Sharpie and write peas, carrots, lima beans, whatever they want to write on the outside. And the person doesn't know that what is being written on them is a lie because they're not aware of what's inside of them. That's a crazy picture, isn't it? Who thinks like that?
I don't know how many times that's happened to you, but you seem to be speaking from experience, Mike.
I see people do this. Okay, I mean, you go to this conference and you're told you're a can of peas, and the next week you go to another conference and you're told you're lima beans, and you go to another conference and now you're green beans, and you go to another conference and you're artichoke hearts. I don't know. But if you don't stop and say, okay, who am I? What does the scripture define me as? Because the scripture, through the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, can see inside of you and reveal who you are, so you will not accept someone else's label.
Well, that was what I was just thinking. More often than not, we tend to call ourselves or identify. And folks, what we're talking about today is your identity. It is when you understand who you are, legitimately who you are, that you begin to walk in your identity and toward the called function of that identity, rather than fulfilling whatever role someone else may place on you. Where I was going earlier, Mike, is that more often than not, we tend to accept other people's labels or identities for ourselves for the sake of convenience, ease of conversation. When someone hears, I'm practicing the Torah to the best of my ability, I don't eat that. You don't eat shrimp? No, I haven't. I don't eat shellfish. Well, living in the Tidewater area of Virginia, I mean, it's very common that sea crustaceans are on everything. And if it's not that, then Smithfield, the producer, one of the largest producers of pork products in America, is just down the road in Suffolk, Smithfield area. So bacon's on everything.
So you can find some bacon wrapped shrimp anywhere you go.
And sometimes they put it all together. Yeah, I mean, so immediately are you Jewish?
Yeah.
There's a possibility of some Jewish lineage there by my investigation. But culturally and with language and with worldview and perspective, no, I wasn't raised a Jew.
Mm-hmm.
If I told my family that we were Jewish, they would look at me with, a crazed look. We're what?
Yeah.
So, people want to put us in boxes that make them comfortable. I remember going to a party of sorts, a gathering. Laura and I had not been married for very long, a couple of years or so. And we ended at this young couple's home with their family. And their family was very much fundamental Baptist. And Laura and I were in a Pentecostal denomination. And very early on in the evening, they wanted to figure out what religious box to put us in. Are you Calvinistic or are you Arminian?
Mhm.
And I, they knew the terminologies. I didn't. So basically, it came down to, okay, on salvation, can you lose your salvation or not? Well, out of my answers, they figured out what box they were comfortable in putting me in, and I'm thinking, I'm just here to eat. And to meet you folks. I don't know what you're trying to prove here. But to them, it was very important that they identify me. So I walked away a bit confused. They're putting a label on me. I don't know what that means. And I had to go to my pastor and try to figure it out. Are you a Christian? I believe in the Messiah of Israel. I believe in the atoning work of Yeshua, who I believe to be the Messiah. I read and preach this entire book, but I don't go to church. And I don't practice Christian theology.
Mhm.
So I do not label myself as a Christian. I'm not anti-Christian. There are some awesome people that I love dearly that would say I'm a Christian.
Mhm.
But what is the function of that term? I realized working on a secular job where I did not readily identify myself as quote unquote Christian, and I definitely didn't tell anybody that I had been a pastor.
Yeah.
As far as the customer knew that came through the door, I was Joe Ordinary standing behind the counter to help them make their purchase. And I watched as the more visible, readily identified group of Christians and pastors, especially, came through. And I watched the religious walls come up. I watched people's eyes glaze over. And I heard the comments after those individuals left.
Mhm.
And I will never forget, Mike, somebody, and I don't say this detrimentally to anyone. I just reporting what the man said. A pastor walked out after he came in, he made a pastoral spiel, asked for a special deal because of who he was, slick presentation, and walked out like he owned the world. And a man that worked there, I heard him mutter under his breath, Christians, I hate them.
Mhm.
That man had been wounded.
Yeah.
He had seen the ugly side of someone's professed walk not being what it was supposed to be. That's not a charge against every Christian. That's just that individual's experience. But I realize, Mike, when we present ourselves a certain way and we wear our big name tags and labels proudly and boldly with flashing neon lights and chains around our neck and emblems all over our t-shirts, people read us not by who we believe we are, but by who they interpret us to be. And therein is why we find people with their fingers in their ears and not willing to hear what we have to say, is because they've had a bad experience at some point with someone that they connect to us, and they lump us all in the same group, not realizing everybody is a little different. There are some that are genuine and some that are not.
Well, and the truth is that you normally remember the people that hurt you in life. That's just a part of humanity. Is that if somebody wounds you, you will remember that. If
Obviously, yeah.
multiple people from the same system wound you multiple times, then your guard is up. I don't tell someone, if someone says to me, what do you do? And that's the typical question, especially with guys, that comes up, what do you do? I tell them I'm a business owner, and I'll take them, we own a business, and I'll take them over to that realm first. And it may be, a long time before I ever mention anything about ministry. because I need to find out where the person's at. Because the moment that I said, well, I'm in ministry, well, what denomination are you? Okay, and this is very similar to when we were in Wakulla County. Kathy worked at the post office part time, and she would have to go and you go around behind when if you got post office boxes, you go in there and you get your little put your key in, you turn it, and you get your little your mail out. If you go around the back, it looks totally different. There's no little doors there. There's no keys there. It's just a bunch of little boxes. And each one of those boxes has a name on it. And so someone is standing back there with mail and they're going, putting it in boxes. And this is basically what most people, when they ask this question of what do you do? And then if you tell them something about ministry or something, what are they doing? They're trying to figure out, okay, which box do I put them in? And what I have tried to live my life to the best of my ability at is living in such a way that they don't have a box to put me in. I want to be a very unique person that they're standing back there with their little thing going, okay, where do I put? No, he didn't quite fit there. No, he didn't quite fit. I want them to become so frustrated at trying to put me into a box that they have to look at me and go, would you please explain yourself? Okay, now we have something we can deal with. Because now we've opened up dialogue for relationship. And when we open up dialogue for relationship, then we can become a person that can impact someone else because they may be going through the same confusion. But if all you do is add confusion to it, you can't produce, if you add your confusion to their confusion, you can't produce order from either person. Is that anywhere close to clear?
Yeah. I'm thinking, Yeshua called us to be light.
Yeah.
And he talked about hiding our light. If I don't know who I am, if I'm confused about my identity and therefore I don't know what role I'm supposed to be playing, what goals I'm supposed to be reaching, is that not in effect a hiding or a shielding or a filtering of my light? My light, I'm thinking that the light of Messiah in me can shine the brightest when I can boldly put it out with an understanding this is who I am, this is to whom I belong, this is my calling, this is the role that I'm playing, and this is what I can offer you. If I don't know who I am, I don't know what I have to offer. A doctor knows he's a doctor because of his training and his acquired experience, and he knows I can offer you medical assistance. A CPA has been trained to help you financially. A believer in Messiah Yeshua should understand I have more than a doctrinal persuasion to offer you or an interpretation of a verse. I have light. I have hope. I have compassion. I have life. I have the love of Messiah, and I am here to offer that to you because I know who I am. I don't have to appease you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to impress you. I should not have to persuade you. I should be able just to exude confidently who I am and who I know lives in me and be confident in that. Mike, you know this better probably than anybody else I know. When you go to Israel, the first time we were in Israel, we were there together in 2001. And we were on a tour bus riding around the perimeter of the city of Jerusalem. And someone in that group that we were a part of made the observation that Jews in Israel believe all Christians to be Catholic.
Mhm.
At the time, I was pastoring a Pentecostal, mainline Pentecostal church. And I immediately responded, I ain't a Catholic. I'm a Pentecostal, brother. I'm Protestant. And after I did some investigative study, it dawned on me one day in my pastor's office, I'm a Catholic. I'm more Catholic than I'm comfortable with because of what I'm seeing, the root of my acceptable practices. The Jews in Israel, especially those, secular Jews, they're lovely people. They're wonderful people. I love them. But they're there to take your money and help you make a purchase. They're there to, they see tourists come and go. Their world doesn't change a whole lot because of what you say or do next in line. They can tell an American or a European that quick. They see us a mile away, no matter how well we think we hit it. The observant Jews, a lot of people are offended that the Orthodox will walk by and never look at them. They'll look right over top of your head. They don't pay any attention to it. You and I know some folks there that are engaging. We want to talk to you, and it's a wonderful experience. But at the same time, and I know they're looking at us and listening to us, trying to figure out what box in the in the honeycomb do we put you in, so that we can better figure out what to say to you that's acceptable.
You see, you mentioned the word life. Confusion doesn't bring forth life. We were, Kathy and I were waiting for something to come on the other night. A program I never watch is 60 Minutes. And it bothers me with all the stuff that's there. But they had a segment about the volcanoes, specifically one volcano in Iceland. And the picture is just, kind of went, wow, I got to see this. Well, we caught the program just a few minutes prior to that. There was no way to, go forward. And it was about transgender. Normally, I would not subject myself to this. But we sat there, literally just kind of with our mouths hanging open about this confusion. The people, the transitioning is, calling it transition. And then there was people that were talking about detransition or kind of going back, and people are going back and forth. And it's like, our hearts were breaking over this. Is what we see. We saw confusion that was not able to bring forth life. A man that doesn't know that he's a man has nothing to offer to a woman who knows she's a woman. A woman who doesn't know she's a woman has nothing to offer to a man that knows he's a man. Now, that may be a little bit more profound if you rerun that and think about it for a little while. But if I don't know who I am, then I have no way to give life into someone else that will produce life. It's just a simple fact of nature. Okay, we live in a day of hybrids and GMOs and all this kind of stuff. You may go to your favorite box store and, there's a whole rack of tomatoes out there. But if you look, you have to go, okay, well, this is a hybrid, that's a hybrid, there's an heirloom. The tomato that's a hybrid is a confusion because it's different. I don't know how they do that. Okay, that's way beyond me. And why would somebody want to do this in the first place? But it's a manipulation. They've manipulated the plant to produce something that it wasn't originally designed to produce, and therefore it can't reproduce because of the confusion. But if I buy an heirloom, then it is what it was and will produce what it is ongoing.
Okay.
Period.
Okay. Hold. So ever how we identify ourselves is what we're going to reproduce.
Yes, yes. So if you are confused, you will reproduce confusion.
So if Christians are taught to reproduce Christians. The
Yeah.
Jews guard dramatically, fiercely against assimilation. They want to reproduce Jewish families, and I understand that. I applaud that. Those of us that are walking Hebraically, we want to reproduce. We want to reproduce generations. I want my children to raise their children as I have raised them.
Mm-hmm.
I want them to, Laura and I were talking about this the other night. I want my grandkids to observe Shabbat. And to, they know the Shema, they know the Aaronic blessing, they understand why Shabbat's, what we do. But if Laura and I are not there, is it carried on? It has to be passed on effectively enough to our next generations that it's reproduced and then reproduced again and again. If we don't believe that what we're doing, if we're not sincerely believing that that's what we're supposed to be doing, that it is scripturally correct, if we're only guessing at this, we're not going to be convincing to another generation or to anyone else around us. Somebody told me years ago when I went into a particular business, you need to be a crusader, that you believe that this is absolutely the right way to do something, and be a crusader for this product line. If you're not sold out on it, you're not going to be effective and successful and passing it on to a customer. We have to be, crusader is a bad word, I understand that, but we have to be believers in this. We have to be absolutely convinced and sold that this is true and that we're walking according to it with all the integrity, intensity that we have to be able to effectively pass it on to the next generation. I don't know what label we'll end up with. Personally, I reference myself as a Hebrew. That's the best term that I can come up with. If there's a better one, not Bedouin, I'm not a Bedouin. If there's a better one, I don't know what it is yet. When I tell people, they say, "Are you Jewish?" No, I'm Hebrew. Oh, do they understand? No. But it gives them a safe label that they can put on me that they can just deal with. If somebody doesn't know what label to put on you or what identity to give you, again, they don't know how to relate to you. And so anything you say to them is not going to have a sticking point. They can't see your perspective and know where you're coming from. If someone tells me they're a conservative or a Republican, I can understand what they're saying. If they're a Democrat or a liberal, I understand where they're coming from. If they say I'm a libertarian, I don't understand libertarian enough to figure out what they're trying to do. So we need to figure this out. Do you have, for the practicality of this time together today, someone listening, what do we hand them that they walk away with, say, well, that helped me to know what my identity is?
Okay. As far as ourselves, this is something if a person is looking for a one-liner, and I understand that I'm known for one-liners is kind of one of the things that I do, but when it comes to your identity, there's no one-liner for it, because your identity is a very complex issue. So any question that someone asks you about who you are should only lead to another question. It should lead to an ongoing conversation.
Okay.
But as far as who I am, okay, and I do whole messages on this. Uh, I don't have, again, I don't have a one line for someone of, of saying, well, this is what it depends on the situation. It depends on who's asking. I may say, I'm a Hebrew. I may say I follow the scripture. I mean, I'm not looking for those one line things. I'm always looking for relational conversation that is going to produce fruit in another person's life. Um, you know, if someone would ask, who I am, I would have a very difficult time putting that into a paragraph. I mean, I guess I could put a challenge. Oh, this would be scary. I could put a challenge out of, email me your soundbite of who Mike Clayton is.
Oh.
I don't think send those to Barry. Maybe, I want to be my identity of being secure in who my creator is, who I believe I am in him, but the portrayal of who I am into this world, I really want that to be a complex issue that people have to walk away sometimes and go, I just don't quite get that guy. I'm not really sure what is going on here, but I think I want to come back and find out a little bit more.
I think it's important, and we're pushing a little bit on time here. I think it's important that however people see us, that they see us as a joyous, joyful people. The last thing we want to do is to be hard-nosed and obnoxious about our identity. The first thing that people need to see about us is our smile and the light of Yeshua in our face and in our eyes. They need to hear hope in our words. They need to understand there's compassion in our manners and our ways with dealing with people. When we're in a restaurant and we see someone eating something that we wouldn't eat, we can cop an attitude or we can be pleasant. If someone sits down with me at lunch or something and they're not of my walk and they eat what I don't eat, I can snarl at them and say, you shouldn't be eating that, and give them a lecture as to why. Or I can ask, how are you? Tell me about your family. What's going on with you today? And I can invest in their lives. And they can have pig on their breath, and I can love them. Because y'all did the same thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget, Mike, the meal that you and I shared the day that we were talking about Laura and I going to Israel for the first time. I was in a restaurant on a Sunday afternoon, and y'all had just said we want your pastor and his wife to go with us to Israel. You took us to lunch. We sat down talking about the potential and the possibility of going to Israel while I was eating baby back ribs. And my biggest concern when that trip became a reality was the sudden realization they don't serve bacon for breakfast. What am I going to do? I'll starve to death. And Yeshua loved me enough that he arranged that trip so I could find him on Ben Yehuda Street in Jerusalem.
Folks, he's not making this up. It's actually true.
It's very true. And I came back and we went through all the wrestlings of trying to figure out who we were and who Yeshua was. And the thing is, because of my false understanding of my identity, I had a false identity of Yeshua. Yeah. I didn't know who he was. So the beginning of the realization of who you are begins with a realization of who Messiah is.
Yeah.
If you can find the legitimacy of the Messiah in the Word, he will reveal his identity of you. And then you can begin to see not only yourself correctly, but out of a proper understanding of your own identity, you can begin to understand who other people are. And the reality is, somebody doesn't need us to say, hey, you're a sinner.
Yeah, we all know that.
Or you're a pagan. Going on Facebook and telling people, well, if you do thus and such, you're a pagan, you're a heathen. You know, how's that working out for you? How much of an inroad into someone's life to be helpful to them is that offering you? People need to see the love of Messiah. But I'm not saying you got to be tolerant and inclusive of everything that everyone does that is wrong. But me putting labels on someone is ill-advised of them trying to put them on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we don't need to give compromise. Well, let me finish my end with a one-liner. The greatest gift you can give to someone else is you knowing who you are. When you know who you are, you can give the gift of you unto them and maybe challenge them to find out who they are. Or just stay confused. It's working out so well.
Folks, thank you for watching Foundations for Life. I hope Mike and I have stirred the pot to where the mud is at least stirred up enough you can scoop it off the top. And don't forget Mike's challenge to send him an email as to what your identity of him is. He has been looking forward to this exercise for a long period of time. And Mike, you can print all of those identifying tags out and hang them on your wall so you don't forget who you are. Put them up next to your mirror, and you can.
Yeah, I will. I'll make sure that I read those every day so that I can become what everybody else thinks I am.
Yeah.
See you, Barry.
See you, Mike. Thanks for watching, folks. We'll see you again next week.